WMNF is accepting volunteer applications to be part of our on-air team.
And welcome. This is Latinx.
Welcome to the Soul Kitchen. It is I, your resident chef, Big Eddie G.
Join your favorite voices on 88.5 FM, WMNF.org, and our HD channels. If you've always dreamed of being on the radio,
I would love to be on the radio.
Now's your chance. Join your listening supported radio station, WMNF. Apply under the programming tab at WMNF.org.
You are tuned to WMNF Radio 88.5 FM. This is a public affairs program called Community Speaks, and I'm your host, Patro Mobili. And of course, this is an opportunity to talk to you, be taking your telephone calls and your emails, and we'll just have a discussion about what's happening in the world today. Many people in the world are observing Holocaust Remembrance Day, which has taken in greater meaning amid the Israeli-Hamas war. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he was heckled at a wreath-laying ceremony today, and President Joe Biden plans to give a speech on anti-Semitism today in the face of the nationwide college protests, with widespread comparison to protests to divest from apartheid South Africa. Are the two situations comparable? Is the Holocaust, which victimized Jews, trade unionists, socialists, the LGBTQ community, and all who the fascists wanted to scapegoat, even to this day? Has that all been forgotten? Is it all but forgotten? And let's talk about it. Many fear those who simply hate Jews are infiltrating the protests, and provocateurs who want to discredit progressive movements and actions are ratcheting up violence and violent rhetoric. So what do you think is happening? You know, a lot of universities are canceling main commencement ceremonies and hoping that when they do allow this commencement ceremony, graduation ceremonies to happen, that it won't be disrupted. But is the message lost? And is there simply just people who are anti-Semitic taking an opportunity to raise their voices and pretend as if they're all about human rights and the Palestinians? And there are a lot of people who've been criticizing these college protests as people who are basically forgetting about human rights crisis in other parts of the world. So let's talk about it. We can have that discussion here on Community Speaks. And, you know, we'd like to continue to remind you there's elections taking place in a lot of countries in the world, but in this country, the world will be watching, and we'll be watching to see which one gets reelected and whether or not we're going to continue to repeat history in this country over and over again. We're listening to a lot of Nazi talking points from the conservative party in this country, talking about the socialists so much, especially right here in Florida. Rick Scott keeps doing various campaign commercials where that's his main point in, you know, given the fact that there's so much disinformation and miseducating going on in this moment for political gain on the part of those on the right in this country. We're going to continue to see that happen. And in this election, we're going to watch the role of artificial intelligence. And of course, as we know, Russia played a role in misleading us and using a lot of disinformation. Even a lot of organizations that, you know, a lot of locations we know and love, using their websites and their organizations' voices to mislead people and pit people against one another in this country. We're going to see AI continue to rear its ugly head in this election, and it's probably going to be something nothing we've ever seen before. The person who ran the online campaign, who was the strategist for 45 during the last two elections, this guy is back, and he's definitely planning on using AI. This guy who his name is Brad Parshall, he was the digital guru behind 45's surprise 2016 presidential victory. He's now a sort of evangelist about the power of artificial intelligence to transform how Republicans campaign for office. He didn't last long on the job for 45, but he's back, I guess, to prove his muster with AI since he's become an evangelist over the power of artificial intelligence. His company is working to reelect 45 in 2024. He's trying to help the Republican nominee take back the White House, and he's going to use AI. So we know what all of this means. If they lied before, they're really gonna lie now. This guy's company is called, I'm not even gonna mention the name of his company, but he says he can use AI to help generate customized emails and parse oceans of data to gauge voter sentiment and find persuasive of voters. But this thing about they're going to use AI to go and collect ballots, and that's a little worrying to me. He says his company will deploy an app that will harness AI to assist campaigns in collecting absentee ballots in the same way that drivers for DoorDash or Grubhub pick up dinners from restaurants and deliver them to the customers. That, I believe, is illegal. You can't go around ballot harvesting, no matter how you want to put it in new forms, AI or whatever. This is exactly what that sounds like. That's already a crime. The few times we've seen voter integrity violated was when the right wing was going around to people's houses and harnessing their ballots, their early ballots, and changing the vote or throwing away the ones that they didn't think or they can see were not voting for 45. So this is going to be the new wrinkle as we look at AI in the context of this election, but nervous about falling behind the GOP. Democrats are also wrestling with how to use artificial intelligence. They say exposing this exposes the party's anxiety over falling behind the Republicans in the race to deploy technology that could transform the future of elections. And we know that there's a lot of people who are out there really working to find out how they can use this technology. And there've always been those who've been trying to find ways to influence the election one way or another, whether it's before the ballot or after the vote, but still smarting behind being outmaneuvered on social media by 45 and his allies. Democratic strategists say they are nevertheless treading carefully in embracing the tools that trouble experts in disinformation. So far, Democrats said they are primarily using AI to help them find and motivate voters and better identify and overcome deceptive content. So I guess they're going to be looking for the anti-AI, the anti-misinformation tools, which would be interesting to see if that's going to be possible to use tools in such a way to figure out what's fake and what's real. But this is going to take on a whole new level of this is going to be a whole new level of use of technology in this election here in 2024. But both sides are looking to use that. And also, we're looking at different ways that people are trying to make their schools better. We're looking at what some people had, one school here in Florida, because as we're talking about how schools are being utilized, what information is being utilized, how people are remembering history, top Florida public school attributes its students' high test scores to the creativity its teachers are allowed in the classroom. And the fact that this school is in Florida is already news that they are finding ways, despite all of the laws that have been trained at schools, these teachers at what is The school's name is A.D. Henderson School. It's one of the top performing schools in the state. And they're asked how they succeed, and there's one answer. They say their autonomy, that there is nobody looking over their shoulder and telling them that everything they're doing is wrong or too woke, that these teachers are giving a lot of leeway at this one for South Florida school. And so maybe we should all take a look at how it is that they're able to maintain their sanity in the face of all of this insanity in terms of the law coming down on schools through school boards and through these fascist organizations like Moms for Liberty. So the chilling effect didn't work on A.D. Henderson School. We're going to talk more about that in the coming weeks. But, before I go forward, I do want to acknowledge that on last week there was a special focus on me and my life on the Slice of Life show with Randy Zimmerman. I do want to appreciate the treatment that she made to that interview. I appreciate that. And what was interesting about that was the fact that you found out that I lived and grew up in Biloxi, Mississippi, and that I called it a progressive city. And that reminded me that there was a lot of history that was not taught in schools there. And given the fact that it was Mississippi, you can see why. But Biloxi itself had a very, very, very progressive past. And there was one character in Biloxi's history that was never really talked about. I had to learn about a newspaper owner back in the 1890s in Biloxi called Sumner Rose. Actually, Sumner Rose was a socialist who became an alderman of Biloxi, Mississippi during the Gilded Age. And so that was the name of his newspaper, The Gilded Age, that he wrote and published, that he was actually sent to jail. And there's a big headline in a mainstream newspaper in Biloxi at the time that says, "Socialist is sent to jail because he refused to pay a poll tax." And because of that, he was incarcerated. So it was a very different world at that time. We still allowed debtors prisons, and you could use in one, especially as they did against this socialist alderman, a newspaper owner, that they used his refusal to pay a poll tax as a reason to go and put him in jail and I guess silence him politically. And so socialists throughout the country went on to support Sumner Rose in this jail stay. And there was a lot of socialists in this country at the time. So when you listen to people like Rick Scott today, he sit on television in his television commercials, ads, and define socialists completely wrong in a way to completely bastardize the bastardized socialists today. Given the fact this is all a repeat of history, and we're seeing these talking points being trotted out again today, and oftentimes for the same reason, to vanquish their political opponents. But this was an interesting case and an interesting character in Biloxi's history, and that arrest on not paying the poll tax was on purpose. It was an attempt to test the street tax law. There was a time in Biloxi where if you refused to pay this weekly tax, I think at one point you had to go and basically allow yourself to be enslaved as a way, and work somewhere in the city as a way of paying off your tax bill. And so that was an attempt by Sumner Rose in Biloxi to challenge this poll tax and announced his determination to wage his fight against Mississippi street tax law to the last ditch, carrying the litigation to the United States Supreme Court if necessary. And Sumner Rose contended that the street tax requirement, usually $3 per annum or per year in each municipality, is class legislation because it exempts students, teachers, preachers, soldiers, sailors, and others, and is a burden that falls heavily on the poorer classes. That, in reality, it makes the poor man a convict laborer for a period of 1 week each year, allowing him a compensation of only 50 cents per day. And this is virtually an equivalent of peonage. It is on this point that he is basing his legal attack on the law in hopes to secure a hearing in federal court. And Sumner Rose claims that he has the backing of fully 300 citizens of Biloxi in his battle, of whom 85% are Democrat, 85% are Democrat, and that they will have able counsel and plenty of funds with which to carry on litigation. So this was a time where people really knew how to fight and stand up to a system that seemed entrenched at the time, and would do anything to fight us back, the people back. And we're seeing that kind of fight return, but also those who are in power are looking at the same history and looking at ways to really fight us back. So this the moment that we're in right now. 813-239-9663 is the number to call. It is 12:21 in the PM. You are listening to Community Speaks, and this is your opportunity to speak. You can give us a call at 813-239-9663. I'm your host, Patrick Mobili, and of course, always looking for an opportunity to shed light, not heat, but light. And it's important that we get a clear-eyed view as to what is happening. And so far, we've talked about the fact that there are people remembering Holocaust Remembrance Day, and in the face of all of the student protests, how much information are these students working on? And are there people who are just anti-Semitic who want to influence, bastardize the protests? And also, we're talking about the scapegoating of socialism in the current election, and the fact that AI is going to play such a role on both sides in the upcoming election. How much information, good information, will you be working on during this election process? 813-239-9663 is the number to call to talk about all of these issues as we look to, as I said, shed light on what is happening in the world. It's interesting to hear what is happening from your point of view. So this is why we do Community Speaks. This is a show that has been on for years. It didn't went away. And last year we brought it back so that we can continue this commitment to talking to you, giving you a platform, giving you a speech, especially those who are marginalized in this society. Very few places to really talk about all of the issues that impact us. 813-239-9663 is the number to call. They're talking about, as we talk about Holocaust survivors, and they're saying that this is because of October 7th, and the Israeli attacks on Israel on October the 7th has really changed. These survivors feel like they found a new mission in this moment in history. As one person, an 88-year-old Holocaust survivor from Poland, grasping the scope of October 7th atrocities, she sought out the young people who hid in safe rooms, in bushes, and under tanks, under bodies, behind makeshift cover that they could find to save their own lives. This is the kind of history that, it's very difficult to talk about, and, to see people have to relive it and be reminded of it makes you wonder just how much information are people working on. And we look at the protests, and a lot of people are concerned that the protesters don't seem to have a whole lot of concern about human rights violations going on in other places in the world in this very moment, whereas we get very emotional when it comes anything that has to do with Jews. And so you wonder, are the people who are just simply anti-Semitic taking advantage of a moment in time, and people are forced to follow along with it under the guise that it is not, that it is basically a comparison to the fight against apartheid in South Africa. And a lot of people feel that is not comparable. First of all, the South African situation was not at all rooted in religion, which is probably why we get so emotional about anything that happens in Israel. And so we have to be clear-eyed about how we're facing these issues today and how we respond to them. We talk about also Biloxi in the process because we talk about a city in a very conservative state that was somewhat progressive, but it had its own history that people had to fight against all types of fascism, and that it makes it progressive when you look at the ferocity of the fight back, not just the ferocity of the oppression. And so, the fight back in Biloxi was swift oftentimes, and so it taught the powers that be that there's certain things, that certain lines you don't want to keep crossing. And once a city goes up in flames, it's a very good lesson not to do that again. Let me go to the telephone lines, 813-239-9663. We got it a little over a half hour to go before we have to get back to the music. We're going to join Blandy Whalen for It's the Music Monday next hour. But right now, you're tuned to Community Speaks here on your non-commercial radio station. Go ahead. Simon from Lakeland, you say what?
Hi, good afternoon, Mabili. Yeah, you're talking about 1,000 years of hatred. I don't think you'll ever... I definitely know that you'll never get rid of anti-Semitism or racism or the stereotypes of humans' inferiority, of envy and greed, and people perceive how other people live and what the perception is. But I just wanted when we talk about anti-Semitism, the difficulty is, what is the definition of anti-Semitism? And that goes to what is then considered free speech. And that's where we're at right now in this country, is trying to define anti-Semitism. I went to the board of WMNF and asked them to adopt the INRA definition, which was just passed in Congress. The HR 6070 is going to go to the Senate as to what is the definition of anti-Semitism. WMNF board never took it up. But very quickly, I'm going to go through this real quick. This is the ADL's 11 questions. They've had this for decades as to whether one is perceived an anti-Semite or not. If you answer 6 of the questions yes, then you fall within the category of what is considered an anti-Semite. Question 1, Jews are more loyal to Israel than they are to their own country they live in. Jews have too much power in international financial markets. Jews have too much control over global affairs. Jews think they are better than other people. Jews have too much control over the global media. Jews are responsible for most of the world's wars. Jews have too much power in the business world. Jews don't care what happens to anyone but their own kind. People hate Jews because of the way Jews behave. Jews have too much control over the United States government, i.e. AIPAC. Jews still talk too much about what happened to them in the Holocaust. Those are the 11 questions the ADL has used for decades as to whether someone is perceived an anti-Semite or not.
All right. Thank you, Simon. 813-239-9663. But it's, it doesn't require a whole lot of thought processing. It's hostility to or prejudice against Jewish people. And we're just going to move on from there. But I wanted to go on and ask about what do we think is the origin of this? Because Simon is right, over 1,000 years of
4,000.
Yeah, go ahead, Terry. You're on the air. You say what?
Hello, I was calling. Hey, that guy even brought up some good points. Mm-hmm. I mean, half of what he said is semi-accurate, but it's actually about 4,000 years. Mm-hmm. And if you'll read in their own literature, Deuteronomy chapter 20, God, which I I'm a deist. I think he might have lit the fuse and walked away at best, and that's all. But God instructed them to kill many, many different people. All of the Hittites, every last woman, child, all their goats, all their babies, all their women, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Even though King David was throwing it to, what's her name? It slips my mind, Uriah's wife, and they were both Hittites. The Hittites were harmless traders. They built chariots. They were business. They did business, but a lot of what is said about the Israelis, or whatever you want to call them, is correct. I mean, even in the state of Florida, if I say anything, if I say, well, I think that Israel is being real unfair with the Palestinians, I cannot do business with the state of Florida because I'm labeled anti-Semitic. Yeah, you look it up. You'll see I'm telling you the truth. If you say anything against Israel, you're labeled anti-Semitic. Well, I've got Jews in my family that are part of my family, and da-da-da-da. But the facts of the matter are, a lot of the stuff they antagonize. And if you will read in, I think it's Samuel, chapter 6, unless the Jews when they approach a society, they ask them, will you be our slaves? And if the answer is no, they are to kill them all. And this is what God told them to do.
Well,
of course, they're God's chosen people.
Well, I think that my question goes beyond just those biblical tales, because, I think that there was a great battle in humanity between monotheism and polytheism, and maybe this is the origin of anti-Semitism. But we're going to move on to Clearwater to talk to Tom. Go ahead, Tom, in Clearwater. You say what?
Hello?
Yes, Tom, can you hear me? You're on the air.
Yes, I can. Okay. Yeah, I'm in Brooksville. Yeah, I'm just calling to jump in this conversation about anti-Semitism and all that. And this is one thing I've been noticing with the college kids, is like any criticism of Netanyahu does not make you an anti-Semite. But it seems like any criticism of him in his craziness.
Right. Because you're right, it's not fair to say that that's automatically, because there are a lot of people in Israel who are criticizing their government.
Absolutely. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but absolutely. I heard this. Jews for Peace, nonstop, they're getting arrested too, for protesting. I heard this one woman, this was months ago, and she said that Netanyahu would rather kill Palestinians than get the hostages. And I just heard that again today, someone else saying that on NPR.
Yeah, but this idea that he seems like he's just stuck with the war possibility only, and that means he needs that for political gain, to look like a powerful person. But
yeah, to keep him out of jail too, because he knows as soon as his term is done, he's in jail.
That's another political wrinkle in all of this.
That's all I wanted to say.
All right.
Just because we criticize Netanyahu does not mean that we are anti-Semites. Right. And all those things that Simon, those are just tropes.
Yeah, that's
any tropes are stupid.
Right. That's the issue there. Thank you, Tom.
All right, thank you.
813-239-9663. If you want to join this discussion, we're talking about, what is it that we do remember about the Holocaust, and our protests, especially students' protests, do they have any education in terms of what happened there? And a lot of people are wondering whether or not, this is a fair comparison when we talk about apartheid, and whether or not there are some people who are taking advantage of the protest against the right-wing government of Israel to just show off their anti-Semitic bona fides. Go ahead, Floyd in Bradenton. You say what here on Community Speaks? Floyd?
We got we got to start at the beginning. Y'all keep starting at the middle. We start at the beginning. We got to talk about what being Semitic means. You have to be dark. When white people started to change the stories in history, things began to change. Then, as well as the breeding camps that white people started in the different continents, those started to change the color. So these people who think that they're actually, native to that land or indigenous to that land are not really indigenous to their land. They're hybrids, by the way, of what white people did to the actual indigenous people there. So by changing all of that, it created diversity between the actual indigenous people to each part of the land. So if anything, we have to start at what white people did and why they lied. And the entire reason why everybody is angry at each other is because of the stories that white people changed. And that's the reason why they don't want to teach CRT. And it's also the reason why every other continent and country teaches different history than ours.
Okay, so yeah, you're saying that people don't feel, and people who are indigenous to a land have been diluted, and especially including in terms of their power because of historical realities of what happened. Are you saying colonialism? Mm-hmm.
In breeding camps, they started a breeding camp. That's why we have all these light races out here.
We know what the slave breeding camps were all about because, Thomas Jefferson outlawed the trafficking in human cargo into these shores. So they had to start making it home.
This was far before that. We want to think about the last 300 years. No, we've been under their control for 530 years. It'll be 31 years. I'm sorry, it was 31 years, the 4th of May. 531 years they've been here on the United States. You have to start.
No, you can start with the Portuguese. That was about the right time, yeah. Mm-hmm. When the Portuguese took over the East Coast. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. 1492, then 1493, they came here. We didn't come from Africa. No black person in America came from Africa.
Well, that's not true, Floyd. Okay, that's not true.
We are all indigenous to America.
No, we're not. Because if you look at your DNA, do you believe in science? It will tell you. Okay, so you know that we're not all, North Americans. Because we've come from Africa.
You have to start at the beginning. Their surveys started in Africa, so of course they're going to link everybody here to Africa. Because if they start with surveys there, they have to link everybody if they start there. They're not going to be able to link nobody in. They link us here. They're going to have to link us to the state that we're in. So they have to link us to the countries in Africa to say that we came from Africa, sir.
Okay, Flora, we could talk about that for a long time, but, you're going up against the DNA record right now. But I think I understand what you were trying to say there, but we're going to move on. Josh in Clearwater, you want to add something to this conversation? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. Where did the anti-Semitism start? And, I'll say quickly that I believe it somewhere started after the fall of Judah and Israel, and a lot of Jews having to, the Ashkenazi Jew went through Eastern Europe into the Western Europe, and just like immigration, I feel like maybe that was some of it. And everybody forgets that, for thousands upon thousands of years, Israel wasn't on this earth. And I'm the grandson of a Holocaust survivor. And let me tell you how important Israel is, because when things were happening to the Jewish people, there was no country, there was no aircraft carriers, no nothing to help us. We got, I consider America almost the messiah for coming and liberating the concentration camps eventually. But that was after millions had already died. So when people say this about or that about Israel, we don't have a choice, because Jews have experienced everything for thousands of years, everywhere. And
well, yeah, I mean, it's
that we have our own military, our own homeland, our own way to protect ourselves. And I'll say one final thing as far as young students on college campuses. When they say, from the river to the sea, that is one of the most anti-Semitic things they can chant. They're literally saying, take all the Jews and push them into the ocean. And I want to be very clear about that people, when Jews hear from the river to the sea, that is one of the most anti-Semitic things that I can hear. And, I want peace just like everybody else.
Josh, before we go, because there's a lot of people who want to talk right now, but I do want to say, I want to ask you this: the idea that I think both sides have problems here in terms of trying to wipe out each other, and that could be what keeps the problem going. Because from the river to the sea, I can understand how the Israelis or any Jew would feel uncomfortable hearing that on a college campus right now. But when you hear Netanyahu talk about he has to completely wipe out the Hamas, or this is just, it seems like we're stuck in this pattern where.
It's a very simple answer. There are millions of Palestinians living inside Israel. They get to vote. They're legal. They're not bombing anything. I've been to Israel, and I've seen a nightclub reopen when it was bombed by Palestinians. But that's not... Jews and Palestinians can live in peace together.
Okay, yeah, I don't mean to cut you. I don't mean to cut you off, but
let me be very specific. Hamas is not the Palestinians.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
That there's 4 battalions left.
You're right.
Hamas.
You're right, Josh. You're right about that. But also, I think what was also on my mind is that here you have the settlers, because nobody talks about the violence that we've seen experienced by the settlers against Palestinians who just simply walk on their land, for instance. And it's really, it's kind of powerful to see that kind of violence against an individual like that, and the police or the military persons just standing there watching. So this, again, tit for tat, it just keeps us in a spiral of violence.
It's not, again, there's 2 answers in Israel. One is to send the babies together to school, which I'm in that camp, to let Palestinian young people and Jews go to school together. It's and make peace that way. And the other answer is to blacktop it, blacktop the enemies. And I want you to remember, when the Jews had nowhere to go, that they made their homeland, we've prayed for it for thousands of years, and when the Palestinians were pushed out in some areas. That's definitely true. They definitely have a right to have a say. But my mother taught me this, that she was born in Israel, and she remembers that when the Palestinians went to Jordan, when they went to Saudi Arabia, when they went to Lebanon kicked them out. Jordan kicked them out. Saudi Arabia kicked them out. Egypt kicked them out. They had nowhere to go. Their own brothers didn't let them in, especially Jordan. Jordan didn't want them to take their jobs. It's really immigration. So that being said, the Palestinians have been stuck in the West Bank and in Gaza. And in the West Bank, that's where the money is and the businesses are. So you won't see what happened in Gaza really happen in the West Bank to this degree. But that's the truth. All the Muslim neighbors, when the Palestinians went for them to help, they didn't give it to them. And what have the Jews done? Jews helped build the Gaza International Airport for them. Has helped them, try to train, try to do everything, try to give them their own land. They didn't take it away. They said, here, I get it. Nobody's letting you live where you can live. We know what that problem's like. Here's your land. And what did? They elected Hamas into power, and they spent the money on October 7th. And that's not a neighbor that Israel can have. And again, it's not against the Palestinian people. No Jew wants to see a baby die or a building blow up. But if these guys literally Hamas hides underneath the hospital, hides behind the Palestinians.
So that's right. You're right. And why keep doing it, though? They're planning on doing it some more and going to Rafah. And, if you keep doing it and keep killing people and you're not getting the hostages out and you're not completely vanquishing Hamas, then why keep doing it? It seems like it's retractable.
Netanyahu just declared that there are 4 battalions still left in there. Mm-hmm. That's it. After that, I don't know. Now they're talking about maybe a deal between Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Israel, making post-security for the Palestinian people in Gaza. So it's coming, but you got to realize, the world needs to realize, there's 4 battalions left of Hamas in Rafah, and 1 million people. They're hiding in 1 million people. We're going after them. We have no choice. The United States isn't doing it. The rest of the world's not doing it. The United Nations not doing it. These are terrorists. They want Jews dead. That's all they want. And unfortunately, the Palestinians are victims. And Israel's doing the best they can. It's horrible to watch babies die. It's horrible.
Yeah.
No Jew on earth wants to see that. But
you need a permanent ceasefire, Josh. And I understand exactly where you're coming from. We're going to move on. There's a lot of people got to speak, but there's a lot. It's retractable if you just keep doing the same thing over and over again. Go ahead, Patrick in St. Pete. You say what?
Doing it. The rest of the world's not doing it. The United Nations not doing it. These are terrorists. They want Jews dead. That's all they
Patrick, I think you're on the delay right now. We're going to go ahead and go to Joe in Seminole, see what Joe has to say. Go ahead, Joe, real quick. You say what?
Hi, Billy. Hi, hey. Thanks for having me on. I just wanted to say that if you are not anti-Semitic, if you say something against the Israeli government. Mm-hmm. Now, if I say something against the German government because I don't like their policies, it doesn't make me anti-German. It makes me not like the policies of that country. Mm-hmm. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
I mean, and it's people have to understand this. If you don't like the policies of what the Italian government's doing, it's not making you anti-Italian to speak up against the Italian government. Right. It doesn't make you anti-American to speak up against your own government.
Right. But what's happening, of course, just like we saw happen with the George Floyd protest against the killing of George Floyd, a lot of right-wingers came out and ratcheted up the violence. And I think we're seeing the same thing happen on college campuses. Go ahead.
They're going to do that every time, Billy. You know that as well as I do. I mean, I marched in the protest in '69, against the war in Vietnam, and I'm a Vietnam veteran. And I'm telling you that you cannot judge, when people confuse a country with the people that live there, you're making a big mistake.
Yeah, it's already simplistic as it is. Right?
I'll let somebody else have the floor. I just wanted to add my 2 cents.
I appreciate you, Joe. Thank you for calling. We're going to go to Newport Richie and speak with Rob. Rob, you say what here on Community Speaks?
Yes, Mobili, you're doing a fantastic job listening to everybody, both sides. I used to listen to Radioactivity with Rob Loride for many years. Mm-hmm. And he would cut off some of these people with the first 10 words. But you've been so generous with airtime. Thank you so much for such a brilliant job.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it.
Very good. God bless you, sir.
Same to you. 813-239-9663 is the number to call if you want to talk to your host, Patrick Mobili, here on Community Speaks. Go ahead, Mike from Sarasota. You say what?
Thank you, Mobili, for taking my call. And I would like to respond directly to Simon, who was quoting the ADL as some sort of legitimate authority about anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm going to speak for what a lot of people know here, which is that these charges of anti-Semitism against the protesters are just a slur. I mean, when someone protests the bombing and killings of innocent civilians, that doesn't make them anti-Semitic. And just like your caller just said, if I don't like the Inquisition put on by the Roman Catholic Church, and I protest against that, that doesn't make me anti-Romantic. So here's what I want to. Here's my main point. There was an interview with Amy Goodman where she interviewed Minister Shulamit Aloni, an Israeli minister, and she said, Amy said, "Yours is a voice of criticism we don't often hear in the United States against policies of the Israeli government. People are called anti-Semitic. What is your response to that as an Israeli Jew?" And Minister Shulamit Aloni answered, "Well, it's a trick. We always use it. When from Europe somebody is criticizing Israel, then we bring up the Holocaust. When in this country people are criticizing Israel, then they are anti-Semitic. And the organization is strong and has a lot of money, and the ties between Israel and the American Jewish establishment are very strong, and they are strong in this country, as you know. and they have power. They are talented people, and they have power and money and the media and other things. And their attitude is, Israel, my country, right or wrong. And they are not ready to hear criticism. And it's very easy to blame people who criticize certain acts of the Israel government as anti-Semitic and to bring up the Holocaust and the suffering of the Jewish people to justify everything we do to the Palestinians. So that explains what all this, this levying of charges of anti-Semitism is about. It's just a propaganda and a con.
All right. Well, thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mabili. Bye-bye.
Bye now. And, again, I just wonder how many people are continuing to infiltrate who are anti-Semitic, are infiltrating the protests in order to keep the issue muddled. Go ahead, Ron from Mango. You say what, Ron?
Hey, Mabili, you right on to it. I have a problem with bombing babies. I don't care. I don't care who's doing it, really. And there's no way you can justify that. Because you're a living person, and you decide to kill people who ain't even lived. Good, really. And look at the abortion issue. They say give life. You can't even destroy it at 2 weeks. So we have a lot of contradictions in our society, and a lot of what I call mysticism and myths and stuff. Like, I listened to the conversation of people saying they was God chosen people. Like, I never heard God say that to anybody. I mean, men wrote that down somewhere that God said that, but he didn't care to tell me. Nobody told me I'm chosen, so I believe that.
Right.
Now, you got a lot of diversity and dissent in that conversation when you go to talking about Israel, period, because people take on the attitude that, that's just like America. You ask the Indians who land is it, they're going to say it's ours. You ask the Americans who, they're going to say it's theirs. It's like the same context to me. I mean, I don't see any difference from my standpoint because, you come and claim title of people's lands and stuff, and then you say it's yours. Then like I told you, always changing laws and stuff. So what really is who is what?
Yeah, and they keep tricking them, just like we found out how some of the Osage women were married. The white men married Osage women just to get the land when they found out there was oil under that land. So they got a trick for you. But the whole idea of this battle between Israel and Hamas. When Israel says Hamas keeps using the children, the civilians as human shields, well, you knew that when the first 1,000 was killed. Now it's been 33,000 killed, and you're still threatening another invasion of Rafah, an invasion of Rafah, knowing that you might face the possibility you're going to be killing kids because they're being used as human shields. So why keep doing it? Yeah,
right. You're absolutely right. But my question goes back to the beginning of the thing. I thought Netanyahu was negotiating with Hamas before Palestine was even an issue.
Yeah, because he wanted to counterbalance the Fatah, the other side of the Palestinian Authority.
Right. They was in there just much like the people you're saying over here saying that they don't have a right to say anything. It's the same thing they was telling the Palestinians they have a right to say anything. So now somebody you angry at is hiding amongst the people that you not intending to hurt, but guess who's getting hurt? That don't sound right.
And then, but on the other hand, you have Hamas did the act on October 7th because they knew that Israel under a Netanyahu would overreact and hit back violently. And so people can argue the Palestinian or the Hamas brings it on themselves when they do things like this and then turn around and use their own people as human shields. And so we're sort of stuck.
You're like destabilizing, though, is what I think. A lot of it's just like our country's going through. I thought it was reconstruction. It's not. It's deconstruction. Yeah, we supposed to, reconstruction, we keep progressing to something else.
Right.
We done went back to deconstruction.
Yeah.
And that's what you hear. The sentiment is deconstruction. There is no reconstruct or to make things better. Just deconstruct the way I would prefer it to be. I, me, not we. So that's what hits you all the time. It's not we. Nobody has to agree with you. So that's the way it is. It's going to be like that until you say it's we the people, not I the people. God chose me. God chose me. Well, do something. Help everybody. Help humanity, please.
Right. Which is the whole, seemed like that's the whole problem with religion and politics in the first place, is that anybody who's can claim their God is all powerful and they can use that God as the excuse for everything they do, that's a problem. Thank you, Ron. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for calling.
Have a good show.
Thank you. Go to Solar. You say what? Here, I think you might have the last word. Go ahead, Solar.
Yes. I know these days you remember the Holocaust, but I was still a shout out to the spirit of Rachel Corey. Let us never forget her. It's been over 20 years. And look how she got killed, bulldozer over. So, in the spirit of Rachel Corey.
Rachel Corey. Okay. Can you give us restore our memory on that, Solar?
The girl who got killed, who was over there fighting for the Palestinians when it was bulldozed in their home.
Okay. Oh yeah. I do remember now. Thank you for reminding us about that. 813-239-9663. You've also been writing emails, dj@wmnf.org. One emailer has written about what a previous caller suggested, looking up Akhenaten, the King Tut's dad. He said there is one God. Judaism and Christianity is Egyptian. Now, that's a little bit, I'm not sure if that's what was said. So I'm not going to read any more of that. You have to study that email a little bit more. But I do appreciate all of the emails that you have all written in to shed some context and light on this conversation. There's a lot, of course, that has been said about what is happening around the world, not just between Israel and Hamas, but human rights violations that are taking place all over the world, oftentimes in the name of your God, and oftentimes in the name of comparative histories that really are not comparable. But we're going to continue to talk about all of the implications that are involved as humans continue to try to deal with the contradictions on the globe. There's so much more that we can add, so much more context that we can add to the conversation. But, the great religious wars of way back in ancient times seem to still haunt us, and we still react to them politically, to one another politically as a result of it. And, a lot of our beliefs are skewed. We've been sold a bill of goods. We've been lied to. We've got a lot of disinformation going on so that people can maintain their own political power. And we don't want to trust those who've got, the ability to teach, the truth, to teach science, to teach history in a way that edifies all of us. And so we continue to react. And, we need to get out of our reactionary mode. But that's my time. This has been Community Speaks. I want to thank you all for calling in and joining the conversation. And I want to also thank you for writing. And I thank Irene for helping with the telephone calls. We're going to get back to the music next hour. But first, of course, we're going to get an update from the Scoop, locally produced news. But this has been Community Speaks. My name is Patrick Mobili, your host, and we'll, of course, be back next week to talk about all of the issues that we're dealing with on the globe. Thank you for joining me here on WMNF Tampa.
If you don't feel, you don't feel, and you ain't real, so don't come around. No syndrome, Holmes, I am not down. Come through flashing like a photo light. I'm the future, like a prototype. Hype, and I wasn't born to write. I was born to love, I was born to fight. I made it, Papa, I made it, through the pebbles and the